Hi, and welcome to our review of the Infrastructure Orchestration and Automation Framework from TSI, powered by leading technology from CloudShell and Cypherpath. A little bit about us first. We are a solution provider for both companies. We focus on customer solutions for building reusable solutions for different markets such as telecom service providers, NEMs, government entities, power and energy companies, helping them to deploy cyber ranges, clouds, data centers, DevOps environments, training environments, and testing labs of all sorts. We even help companies with customer-facing portals for everything from pre-sales, POV and POC, to partner portals. So, what are the problems and needs of a large network computer infrastructure? We've compiled a list of the top issues our customers have come to us to solve. Everything from how to get started in running a large infrastructure, to automating it, and finally to understand and measure how successful you are running your infrastructure. You can almost look at it as from a lifecycle perspective and consider it like a PLM or product lifecycle management implementation where your product is your infrastructure services to your consumer of the infrastructure. So now that you understand a little about these two great technologies, how do they work together? As you can see, the use model is to use CloudShell as the orchestrator to handle both the physical resources and the virtual containers. This way, CloudShell can also manage the generic hardware, compute, networking, and storage that supports the Cypherpath virtualized environments. We can use the automation to spin up additional resources under Cypherpath to grow and shrink the resources as needed to support the demands of the users. CloudShell can then provide automation and additional provisioning and configuring of the virtual resources within the Cypherpath containers. Now in one pane of glass, you have access to all of the resources that are needed to manage, provision, schedule, reserve, consume, and automate all of your physical and virtual resources. Now let's see a demo of all this in action. First, in CloudShell, you'll notice that we have a catalog of environments that we can choose from, just like in AWS or another cloud offering. So we could choose the infrastructure automation environment, and here we can choose the CloudShell Cypherpath test environment. So we'll pick this. We'll actually reserve it. So we can open this, and once we reserve it, we can actually reserve it and schedule it and do automatic conflict resolution, as well as add in recurrence across different types of patterns from different ranges. In this case, we don't really need to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and reserve this for an hour. This does the conflict checking as we talked about, and then opens up a Visio-like live diagram of our networked environment. I've turned off the actual networking lines just for clarity here so you don't have to see those. Notice that here we have a Cypherpath container device. We have a breaking point chassis, an Exia Storm. We have a Cisco switch. We have a Cisco 5K, and we have a UCS chassis. These are physical items within our environment, and the Cypherpath Live container is a virtual one. Each one of these has live commands that we can operate on. For example, on our breaking point, we could RDP into it, or our Cisco 5K, we could secure shell or RDP into it as well. In this case, we could go to the Cypherpath Live container, and we can actually open the virtual container platform tool from Cypherpath. This opens Cypherpath in a browser window. I'll go ahead and click Login. And notice it comes up with my dashboard here. It shows me my environment, how much memory I have. Since I'm an admin here, I can actually take a look at the status and see how much disk space I'm using, current RAM, what the system stats are in my environment. If I go back to my containers over here, I can actually click on where it says CloudShell Test and actually view this particular container. And this is a full virtual environment that contains a switch and workstations as well as a breaking point VM. You'll notice that they're all red in color. That tells us that this container has not been started, so none of these machines are actually active at this moment. Okay, switching back to CloudShell. Here we can see that in CloudShell we also have documentation and instructions. So if I click on the instructions tab here, we can see the entire TSI solution that talks about that container. What's in it, information about web links, PowerPoints, videos, all sorts of things that we can do to see CloudShell and Cypherpath information as well about our environment. Additionally, when we click on the Cypherpath container, we can actually issue commands to a shell or driver that has been written directly for the Cypherpath container. It uses a RESTful interface to control all the options within the Cypherpath, so everything that's done through the GUI, we can also do with automation here directly from CloudShell. You'll notice that we have several different types of functions, such as admin functions, user functions, container functions, and others. I'll go ahead and expand these all out, and we'll go ahead and run a couple of these. For example, first thing we might want to do is get our resource status. We can even see as we highlight on top of it, it gives us the information about the actual structure of that command and where it came from. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and click Run on the resources and get the status of those. I'll actually click on the output window here so we can actually see that, and I'll actually click Run. Queues it up and runs. This is fully supported with authentication and a very secure environment to get to Cypherpath. So it comes back, it tells us how much committed memory, and these are the same numbers that we saw from Cypherpath directly. We can also get information about the node status, so we can actually see the node and how much CPU is being used over time, get the information that is there. And additionally, we can go down and get information such as get a list of containers that we might want to take a look at. So I can actually click Run, and it'll actually bring back all the containers that are in the Cypherpath environment. You notice that this runs pretty fast. So you can see we have a lot of different Cypherpath containers out there. And then I can actually start a particular container. So if I click over here on Start Container, I can click on the name here, and in case this our actual one is called CloudShell Test that we want to start, that we looked at previously. So I'll go ahead and click on that and click Run, and this will actually start that Cypherpath container. So I'll wait a second here for it to actually start, and hopefully it gets started. We'll actually see it. Now you notice that it says stop there, so it's actually started already. So we can actually watch these workstations come up, and as soon as one comes up, we can then actually click on it. For example, here's my Cypherpath WinXP. This is just a WinXP virtual machine, so I can actually take a look at the information on that guy. If I click on him and select him and then go over here, I can actually connect to that box and actually open it up in a separate browser and get a VNC window directly into that box. And there we are. We can actually log in and do some stuff. I'm not going to log in this particular case. Okay, so now all of our machines are spun up and live, so we can switch back to CloudShell. And now we might want to bring those machines into CloudShell so that we have a dynamic environment of all of our physical resources plus all our virtual resources all in one pane of glass. So for example, I have a command out here that's called Export Topology to CloudShell. So we'll click on it and we'll click the container name, CloudShell Test, and we'll actually click Run, and this will dynamically build all of the virtual resources as models inside of CloudShell, add them to the database, and then automatically populate them directly into our environment. So it's off and running, and there they are. So we can see we get information, successful export of the topology. If I click on the X over here, you can see that now all these new workstations, my breaking point VM was added. There were several different workstations added. I can use my little scroll bar here to zoom out and zoom in. And there was one Cypherpath WinXP machine that was also added. These are all area network. They have all their IP addresses, all their information. But not only that, they've actually been linked to drivers. So if I click back over here on more, I can actually do what's called an ellipse auto arrange, which will actually bring these in such a way that I can get to them nice and easy and make them look a lot prettier here so we can see them. So now I'll maybe zoom in a level or two. So you can see here that we have our UCS chassis and breaking points. These are the physical devices, but the workstations were all virtual workstations. So I can actually click on the commands in the virtual workstation and RDP into it, or VNC or Telnet, whatever the particular method is to talk to that. In addition, I can actually click on the commands and have a set of shell commands to send a file or a script to that machine, execute that, turn the power on and off, and do other machine level VM items as well. You'll notice if I take a look over here at the breaking point VM that's down here, we can actually take a look at its command structure and see in fact that we have a breaking point VM automation driver loaded underneath that VM, so I can load and start, pick a particular test, get the test statistics, get the test status, and end the test all without having to be an expert on a breaking point VM environment. Once we're done with all the automation and things that we might be doing in this particular environment, then we can possibly set the machine down. You'll also notice that we have drivers in here for some of the other devices, such as our UCS chassis. So we have a full automation driver for driving all the admin and user activities of a UCS chassis as an example. We have the same thing for VMware and other environments, as well as, say, Cisco switches and iOS and Juniper, etc. Once you get done with all of your automation and you're finished, one of the things that we can do is go back to our Cypherpath container driver and clean up the environment. We didn't show you, but it actually created all the resources. Let me pop back into Resource Manager and do a refresh over here. This is the database viewer from CloudShell that actually shows the information. And you can see when I hit the refresh button, all these Cypherpath machines showed up. They're currently reserved, so other people can't use them. They're all part of our single topology environment, the Breaking Point, the Cypherpath XP, and the other 10 workstations. So now when I switch back to CloudShell, and I tear down this topology and delete it and stop the container. So first thing I might do is click stop on the container. So I'll go over here and tell it to stop that container, and then after it's stopping that container and it gets called, we'll then go back down here to our machine admin functions and we will delete all the VMs that are out there. So I'll pop into CloudShell test, and now it will delete them from the CloudShell database, so they're no longer active, they're no longer environments. They'll get deleted dynamically from inside of the topology here, and we'll be back to an ambient state. All of those resources now will be then released back into the pool of resources so that you can see that those resources go back into the environment for other users to use. Once we have all of them done, you can see that they're all gone, and the only things that we have left now, if I do a, let's just do a gridded one here and zoom in on this a couple levels, you can see that we just have our physical devices plus our Cypherpath. If we click back into our Cypherpath environment, you can see that we're in a stop and it's performed the stop. They're all red, they've all stopped. If I go back to my system status and take a look at it or run the command from there, everything is back to its original ambient state. The memory's been released, the disk and other things have been released, as well as the CPUs. So, in talking at the end here, lastly, because all these tasks are done in CloudShell, all of our activities are being logged into our business intelligence database called Insight, so we can bring those back up with dashboards later, which is a subsequent demonstration not covered in this particular webinar. So in summary, TSI's integration of Cypherpath within CloudShell can provide a unique framework so that we can meet the needs of your large infrastructure and streamline the many processes and applications and management needs of all, so that your large infrastructure can thrive and grow and meet the needs of your customers. We thank you very much for your time today. We look forward to hearing from you. You can contact us on the following slide. Have a great day.